Hello everyone, welcome to Business Live. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Cabinet directs Cocoa Board to roll out a structured repayment process to ensure that all affected cocoa farmers receive their outstanding monies as soon as possible.
To bring relief to unpaid cocoa farmers, Cabinet has accordingly directed the Ghana Cocoa Board to commence immediate repayment of all affected cocoa farmers.
Also in this bulletin, government sets a new farmgate cocoa price at 41,392 per tonne for 2025 and 2026 season.
PPRC has recommended that the farmer be paid 90% of the achieved gross FOB of $4,200 per tonne.
We will be analyzing these issues with an industry person. Plus, production of goods and services for November 2025 slows to 4.2% of GDP.
That overall economic activity in Ghana was 4.2% higher in November 2025 than in the same month in the previous year.
We have details of these and more coming your way all in a moment. Please stay. Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojobaka. Looking at our stories, Cabinet has directed the Ghana Cocoa Board to immediately begin the repayment of cocoa farmers who have been left unpaid. According to the Minister of Finance, Dr. GHs41, the decision was taken by Cabinet as part of efforts to bring relief to farmers facing financial difficulties following delays in payment across the parts of the country. Now, speaking on the directive, Dr. Forson said Cabinet had instructed Cocoa Board to roll out a structured repayment process to ensure that all affected farmers receive their outstanding monies as soon as possible.
Cabinet has therefore decided on the following reforms to guarantee a fair price to the cocoa farmer, secure the financial viability of the cocoa sector, and ensure the long-term sustainability of the cocoa industry. To bring relief to unpaid cocoa farmers, Cabinet has accordingly directed the Ghana Cocoa Board to commence immediate repayment of all affected cocoa farmers. 2. A new Cocoa Board bill will be presented to Parliament to implement an automatic adjustment of producer price to align with movement in the world market price, exchange rate, and other key variables, and guarantees a minimum of 70% of gross FOB price to be paid to the cocoa farmer. A new financing model for cocoa purchases and related operations with associated benefit for increased processing will be introduced effective 2026-2027 crop season. The current financing model was invented as a necessity after the syndicated loan failed after 32 years of successful implementation, and it was proven not to be sustainable. In fact, it has proven not to be sustainable. The financing model is entirely dependent on a buyer's willingness to bear the financing cost and to pre-finance the purchase of cocoa.
And government has in the meantime set a new farmgate cocoa price of 41,392 per tonne for 2025 to 2026 season, aimed at cushioning farmers against the recent decline in global cocoa prices. Now, speaking during the press briefing, Dr. Forson disclosed that the new Producer Price Review Committee under his chairmanship convened earlier in the day to assess the challenges facing the sector and to review the producer price for the remainder of 2025-2026 crop season.
The world market price has dropped significantly from the average of 7,200 tons to 4,100 per ton, making Ghana's cocoa beans uncompetitive and creating liquidity challenges. To address this, the Producer Price Review Committee, PPRC, met this afternoon under my chairmanship to assess the challenges facing the sector and review the producer price for the remainder of the 2025-2026 crop year. In order to cushion the farmer, the PPRC has recommended that the farmer be paid 90% of the achieved gross FOB of $4,200 per ton to mitigate the adverse impact on the farmer as a result of the fall in the world market price. As a result of that, the PPRC thereby announces that effective today, Thursday, 12 February 2026, the new producer price for the remainder of the 2025-2026 crop season will now be 41,392 Ghana cedis per ton and 2,587 Ghana cedis per bag. This measure has become necessary to reflect the reality of the world market price of cocoa, ensure the injection of immediate liquidity for expedited payment of farmers, and guarantee the sustainability of our cocoa sector.
And it is important we explore these developments further and bring in an industry person. Edward Kariwe is the former General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. Thank you so much, Mr. Kariwe, for agreeing to speak to us here on Business Live. Now, we want to hear your initial comments about the directive by Cabinet to Cocoa Board to begin the payment to affected farmers largely, and the price cut we are witnessing.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you. I also thank our farmers and those who are listening to us and watching us as well. I think that it is important that certain measures are taken immediately, and that is exactly what government has done. I had stated somewhere else that what we need to do immediately is to get money to the farmers, because lives are involved, people's education are involved, other social needs are involved. So for that matter, the farmers who are about 800,000 households cannot be without incomes. So government must give them money immediately. Now, government has decided to authorize the payment of these monies. I'll hear some people complain that if Cocoa Board doesn't have money, how come the government has authorized Cocoa Board to pay? As if Cocoa Board is absolutely independent from government. Because government cannot intervene in paying the farmers unless through Cocoa Board. So certainly the question should be, where is the money coming from? And I believe that government must find the money, give it to Cocoa Board to pay the farmers. So I think that the reduction in the payment, which I did indicate somewhere else that it is better than allowing the entire industry to collapse. Well, there's no way out that the current system is sustainable, whereby the global market price is far lower than what you pay to your farmers. Not to now talk about other costs that is associated with cocoa production and export along the value chain. So it is just rational, and it is better to save the hen that lays the golden egg than to allow the hen to die. What I mean is that if Cocoa Board collapses, farmers, though they produce the cocoa, they also can admit that Cocoa Board plays a very important role in the cocoa production by way of giving them services, by way of giving them inputs, and so on. So certainly this decision by government is a louder one, and it is timely to save the industry and to put money in the hands of farmers.
It is timely, you say, but then again, don't you think the new price will affect cocoa farmers' livelihoods, considering the production costs and challenges they face, really?
Well, let me say that if you look at cocoa production in this country, and if you just suppose cocoa with any other crop, cocoa is one of the crops that government intervention and subsidy is huge, and even if we also compare Ghana cocoa farmers with other countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and other countries, it is only in Ghana that we have such huge government support for production. So it is just that government cannot continue in this situation. And they must also know that all that they have produced is because government has supported them to produce. You see? So it's not, so we should, whilst we are looking at what we should give to the farmers, we should also be mindful about the support that government gives to cocoa farmers through cocoa board to be able to produce what they claim as is their produce.
I bet to say that, well, this new price we are learning falls in line with the union's expectations, like you've rightly articulated. But really, how do you think it reflects the true value of cocoa in the global market? Does it?
Well, I think I'm here to do serious analysis of government policy today. They announced that you can see that what they are paying them now, that is the new price, is 90% of the current global price, as against 70% of the previous one. You know, so even though it has come down, it constitutes 50% of the global price now, 90% of the global price now. So it means that government has absorbed some of the cost, and then the farmers too would absorb some of it. And this is what we need to appreciate. And again, the farmers that we have, our farmers, are also aware about what is happening in the global market. They know the prices. And so it is not just like they are oblivious about what happens in the global market. They've known that, they've seen that prices are far low in the world market, far lower than what they are receiving in the country here. And this is not sustainable. So I believe that it is a compromise price level, and government will need to go out through cocoa board to reach farmers, to let them know that this is what can be done at the moment to save the farmers, to save the industry, and then to make sure that cocoa has a future. Otherwise, if we don't take care to deal with this crisis, and when there's a crisis like this, it's not each party or stakeholder who is involved must be ready to lose out something in order to save the crisis. It cannot be that one stakeholder will benefit or continue to maintain what it used to have, and then the others will lose. So it is for all the stakeholders, and I entreat the farmers to appreciate it from this angle, that we are in a crisis state, we need to deal with the crisis. And when there's a crisis state, every stakeholder would have to be ready to contribute some level of sacrifice to deal with the crisis.
And as we make progress to wrap up the conversation, for you, what do you think would be the cocoa industry involving the next few years, considering the reforms government has outlined? And what price adjustments would you recommend to ensure farmers' welfare and industry growth are catered for?
Well, I think that the future of cocoa is also in crisis. And even though these measures have just been brought out, I think that going into the future, we still need to revise these measures and make sure that we make cocoa survive into the future. Because one, we are now, even our internal production, the way we produce cocoa, we cannot continue that way. You just imagine that if you have 1,000 pots of cocoa, then you have to count all of them and cut open all of them to remove the beans. We cannot continue this way. We should be able to introduce technology whereby the cocoa pods are put in the machine, and the machine will open, scoop out the beans, and then it will be faster. We can continue the way we produce cocoa in this country, hoe and cutlass, and so on. I think that we want to be competitive in the global market and also to make more money for ourselves and then to grow the industry. So I think that the measures that we need to have beyond what government has said is to reform and transform cocoa production in this country to make it more efficient, more productive, and then less laborious and then profitable.
Thank you so much, Edward Kariwe, former General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. I'm glad you could make time to speak to us here on the Business Live. Now, we want to stay along on this because economist Professor Peter Quartey says the government must prioritize local cocoa processing and establish a dedicated cocoa fund to reduce reliance on borrowing. He warns that failure to act swiftly could damage Ghana's international reputation and push struggling farmers toward smuggling or illegal mining.
Let's look at the financing model again. Let's set up a fund where we can contribute to, government can contribute into this cocoa fund, and ensure that we don't always have to borrow to finance cocoa purchases or invest in the cocoa sector. We could have done this long ago during the boom period, during the heydays of the cocoa farming era. We know cocoa, I mean, we've been to cocoa growing areas. I have lived in Sunyani, Brongafo region. I've seen cocoa farmers struggle. I've seen cocoa farms. I've seen their livelihood, etc. And looking at the revenue we generate from cocoa, we shouldn't have waited up to this point where farmers cannot be paid. Their livelihoods are threatened. Their families are threatened. So we should not waste time on this. I'm happy the Minister of Finance is stepping in quickly. Cabinet has discussed the way forward. If we delay, it's going to affect our reputation internationally. It's going to affect farmers. Farmers there'll be disincentive for them to continue to invest in cocoa farming. What they're going to do is either they smuggle or they sell their cocoa farms to illegal miners and get quick cash. I don't think that is what we want. They can cut down their cocoa trees, burn them, and invest their land into something else. I don't think we want to encourage this. To the international community, to the buyers of our cocoa products, if they know that they have bought cocoa or they are buying cocoa, yet the farmer who produced that cocoa has not been paid, morally and their conscience will not be right. It's been going to affect the demand for our cocoa. So we need to sit carefully and ensure that this doesn't happen again.
This is still Business Live. Let's pause for a reader. I'll be right back. Hello again, welcome back to Business Live. Provisional data from the Ghana Statistical Service suggests a slow GDP growth of 4.2% in November 2025 compared to 7.1% in the same period 2024. The services sector was the biggest contributor to aggregate production of goods and services, recording a growth of 6.7%. We have more for you in this report.
Provisional data from the Ghana Statistical Service suggests a slow gross domestic product growth of 4.2% in November 2025 compared to 7.1% in the same period in 2024.
The monthly indicator of economic growth index for November 2025 is 122.7, up from 117.7 recorded in November 2024. It means that overall economic activity in Ghana was 4.2% higher in November 2025 than in the same month in the previous year. In plain language, Ghana produced 4.2% more goods and services in November 2025 than it did 1 year earlier.
Despite being the biggest contributor to aggregate production of goods and services, the services sector recorded a growth of 6.7%, slower than the 10.2% recorded in 2024. The agri sector grew by 4.1% in November 2025 as against 3.8% in November 2024, driven primarily by fisheries and crop production. On the contrary, industry's growth slowed sharply. Despite the strong performance of gold, the sector recorded a growth of 0.4% compared to 6.2% in the same period 2024.
This is because the contraction in crude oil was so prominent that in spite of the bigger weight we had in gold and also the positive performance we saw in gold, it still dragged industrial performance to 0.4. And also, if you saw the mining and quarrying, it actually was dragged down significantly because of the significant reduction in petroleum production.
Although these are provisional figures, the Ghana Statistical Service says the data provides an indication of the economy's outlook in the upcoming quarterly GDP report. For Joy Business, Atase Nyako.
And to some other stories, team lead for the Ghana Private Sector Competitiveness Program, Juliana Ofori Kakari, has pledged support for small and medium enterprises in the tree crop sector through targeted funding opportunities. Speaking at a matching grant award signing ceremony, she explained that the initiative is designed to help promote SMEs scale up, strengthen their operations, and improve competitiveness within the sub-region.
Private sector competitiveness programs matching grant award signing ceremony was held to recognize 10 SMEs that successfully navigated the competitive selection process and demonstrated the capacity to sustainably enhance their value chains while maintaining global competitiveness. This grant falls under one of the 3 implementation modalities named the Implemented by Development Partnership in the Private Sector. According to team lead for the program, Juliana Ofori Karikari, this phase of the program reaffirms their commitment to support SMEs in the value chain to grow and be profitable.
We are looking at the area that will support the private sector to improve, to grow, and to be able to have access to market as far as the environment is concerned, not only locally but also internationally. And this is a grant where you provide a counterpart and then we also provide the other leg. If it is about equipment, we are providing 50% and the business will also provide 50%. If it's about certification, you provide between 30 and 20% depending on your abilities. And when I say on your abilities, I'm looking at your turnovers at the end of the year, what you are making and what we should be able to do to support you to grow and to also sustain yourself as far as your agribusiness is concerned.
Chief Executive Officer of the Tree Crops Development Authority, Dr. Andy Okra, commended the program and the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs for their efforts in improving the cashew and oil palm industry.
We have this aspect where Ghana Competitiveness Program is supporting the value chain actors, where they are granting or they are giving grant, matching grant, to support, to scale up whatever processing and value addition they are undertaking. And it is very key. Last year I saw one, and this year too, part of the program we are supporting 10 people under cashew and oil palm. And this is very good. And I commend that they continue to support this aspect because there are a lot of people who need that support. And I want to say that if we continue this way, then the president's vision of value addition and processing and industrialization will be achieved. And we want to commend Swiss government for what they are doing.
The Ghana Private Sector Competitiveness Program is expected to boost growth, innovation, and resilience among SMEs in Ghana's tree crops sector. The ceremony also served as the launch of the 3rd matching grant call.
And that's our package by way of business life. I am Pius Kujobaka, always a delight serving you.